my social media presence at the moment. It's working quite well. Getting a lot of great responses to these education videos I'm putting out.
Media. We call it the media now, dude.
The media, yeah.
Because
And
it's funny. It's funny. I've been advising people.
yeah,
You got to up your social game. You got to, I mean, what you're doing, you're putting no effort into it. And these are people who really have no other source of media except for stuff they're paying for. We have this platform. I have the forum and everything else that we've done all these years. The American Hair Loss Association is mentioned in some article at least 3 days a week. If you just go to Google News and put in the American Hair Loss Association, you'll see 2 or 3 articles this week alone. So we get a tremendous amount of traffic and notoriety from that stuff. So I never felt the need to do it. It's like, oh, it's just going to be another pain in my ass. So when Andrew was here, I'm like, you know what? I just mentioned it. I said, you know what? I'm going to start tweeting. And all of a sudden, boom, it just exploded. So you know what? It's important. I may tweet right now as I'm on the air. We just lost Jill. You know what? Let's see if we can take a phone call. 888-659-3727. I can't answer that, dude. Jesus. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer. It's Mike from New York. You and I spoke a bunch of times. Reminder, I'm the one who was on Propecia. Then when having my daughter, I got off the Propecia.
Sure, man. What's happening? How are you?
Oh, things are good. Thank you very much. So I guess the news is that I decided to go back onto.
Oh, dude, we just lost you, man. Say that again.
My wife is pregnant again.
Oh, she is.
So
right.
after
Mazel tov. That's great.
After the coast being, I guess, clear in terms of the amount of months that any potential for things to go wrong on her end passed, which are around 4 months, I got back on Propecia for the first time in about 6-7 years or so.
All right, and how do you feel?
So it's so far so good. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to call and discuss with you guys is because I'm in a definitely a much different position than I was when I first started. I have a lot more hair loss than I did when I first went on years ago. So I guess some of the questions that I've had is, I'm basically finishing my first bottle. I think tomorrow I'll fill up my second bottle, and I had skipped a couple days here and there for forgetfulness and that kind of thing. But
that happens.
About a month or so. The first question I actually had for you guys, and I'm reading online, but I can't really get a real good answer. And I asked my doctor. He said it really he didn't see a difference in his own mind. But Finasteride versus Propecia, so generic versus Propecia. I'm now taking the generic. Last time I was taking Propecia. Any differences there, that you guys have seen or any thoughts on that?
Well, it's a really common question, and I am a fan, I call myself a brand whore, of the brand name drug for a couple of reasons. One, that's what I started on, and that's where I found my success, so, why fuck with a good thing? Also, there have been a lot of anecdotal reports from guys who have either A, been on brand name Propecia, and then once the generic started to come out, they switched and they lost ground. Or B, guys who started on generic Finasteride or Propecia, had no results, and then switched to brand name. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, they had results. I know, Joe, you get the same type of, anecdotal reports.
Yeah, I many years ago I started to see this happen, and I'll add one more classification. They were on name brand, went to generic, lost ground, went back to name brand, and regained, proving without a doubt that whatever generic they were taking wasn't as effective as the name brand. Now, I always need to qualify this that this isn't a blanket position a bit against generics in general when it comes to finasteride. My position is that it's just not consistent. Some people have generics and they got a great response and it works well for them. But I don't think that there's any way to know for sure from one brand to the next of these generics which one is going to be consistent for you, which one isn't. If you like your generic, stick with it and just don't switch from one to the next. Maintain with that manufacturer. But like you said, I'm a brand whore. It's like
the problem with that is sometimes you can't maintain with the same manufacturer. What happens is your pharmacy makes the choice based on economics. So
yeah, but that's what I was saying is if you can, stick with it for the consistency. But yeah, like you said, the pharmacy, the way the pharmacies work is when they bring in these generics, they actually do bulk contract buying, and when it gets to these generics, they have a buyer in the company that actually looks for the best deal on the generics from of different medications, not just finasteride. So that's how that works. So they bring in the cheapest one that they can get based on what their buyer can find in the marketplace. So it's just like anything that they obviously want the cheapest price. But I look at it like this: it's like, here's my box of Proscar. This is roughly the same price as a box of Propecia, depending on where you are. It's the original manufacturer product. You just quarter it. That's what I do. I think that's what you do. And take a quarter of the tablet instead of a full tablet of Propecia, and you're effectively reducing your cost by 75%.
Well, what I do is I take one tablet once a week. So I don't bother cutting it, anything. I take 5 milligrams, and I hope for the best.
Yeah. So, and hang on for dear life.
And hang on for dear life. So here's the thing. I guess this is my question to you, man. I know it's been years since you've been on the drug. Are you sensing that it's not as effective as it was when you were using the brand name? Meaning, are you noticing that the results aren't, or are you noticing that you're not getting any results, or they're not happening as quickly as they were when you're using brand name?
It's so hard for me because the hair loss at that time was so different, and in addition to the hair loss, in addition to me going on to Propecia at that time, literally at the exact same time I found Topic. So the combination of the two together just was like a whole new head of hair for me.
It's magic.
So I don't really know. Yeah, it's like I don't know what helped what. From the second that I went on, I used Topic, I could see the difference. So all these things that I know now, like shedding and all of that kind of stuff, it's very hard because I've been losing a lot of hair, over the last 7 years. So I don't know what's what. I don't know if I'm shedding. I don't know if it's not working. I've only been on it for a month, so that kind of segues into what I was going to ask next, and that is, I don't know what to expect at this point in time with this, with going back on again with the hair loss that I have now versus what I had years ago.
Well, here's the thing. You reacted well initially, okay, to Finasteride, even though it was name brand. There's no reason to think that you're not going to have a similar response. The problem is that the longer you are, not producing hair in a particular area, the more difficult it is to start start that production process again. So it's kind of like if you had able to catch your hair within, say, 3 to 5 years of it initially miniaturizing. If that was the case when you started, then that's probably, A, you had more hair in your head, and it's also probably why you saw the results that you saw. Now you have less visible hair. So you may be saving and reversing the miniaturization process of the more recently lost hair, but the old stuff may never come back. Do you know?
Gotcha.
Do you know what I'm saying? So the stuff that you
Yeah.
were saving, 7, 8 years ago, that may be gone.
And then.
Does that make sense, Joe?
So
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, sorry to interrupt. I mean,
no.
I actually talked about this in my latest video. It's like, once you stop taking medication, it's your hair loss is going to revert back to the state that it was. Actually, this is the way it usually works: is if you've been on the medication for, say, 5 years, just as an example, you stop taking the medication, you will quickly revert back to where you would have been in those 5 years, or after 5 years of continued loss, at what seems to be an accelerated rate, and then you'll plateau back to your normal rate of loss. And then if you do start back on like you have, you may have a reversal. You may have what appears to be a thickening activity going on, but I would doubt that it would actually get back to where it was before you ceased its use to begin with.
Yeah, that I think. I mean, and I've come to grips with that. It's even in the last year, I've seen quite a significant loss. So and if I can get to, if at all possible, get to the point of even where I was a year ago, and not even 5 years ago or 7 years ago, whenever it was, I would be, very happy with that. I think where I often get confused is, and I'm sure you guys have discussed this many times, and I don't really know what the correct answer is the back of your head versus the front of your head. And I know the research has always been done for the back, so I guess legally they can only say the back, but I don't know if will regrow hair in the front of my head, because that's also one of the things that I'm really looking.
It can. I mean, I've seen it many times. It can revitalize the miniaturized hairs in the hairline, and I said that because I want to qualify that it doesn't regrow hair, and people need to. And I know you understand that, but people listening need to be clear about this. It doesn't regrow hair. It simply grabs onto hair that is being affected by DHT at a very miniaturized state, and halts that conversion process to where the hair can actually recover and thicken hair shaft diameter, hair shaft length, to the point where it's visible again and creating or contributing to the overall aesthetic of your hairline or the mid scalp or wherever it's recovering. So, but yeah, I have seen this many times where the frontal zone, the hairline, can be recovered to usually a mild extent, but in some cases pretty significant. Andrew Zarian's a perfect example of this. He had a phenomenal, just one of the best hairline recoveries I've ever seen from the medication.
I would have to agree. I mean, I saw him. He was at the house a couple of weeks ago, and it's ridiculous what his hairline looks like. And he was losing it. I mean, he really was. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So then I guess then the question is, what's happening now within my first month, potentially, if all is going well, or I guess not going well, but what's going to happen? I've been on it for a month. I've taken about 30 days worth. What should hopefully be happening, and how long do I wait to see things happen, and when does the shedding occur? A way to determine what the difference between shedding is and me losing
here's the thing.
more hair.
Here's the thing. It really depends on where you caught it in its growth phase. Mm-hmm. Did you catch it? Did you start taking the drug when it was in an anagen phase, in an active growth phase? Did you take it when it was in a resting phase? Meaning, if you take it during a resting phase, even though it's not supposed to be synchronized, it may actually synchronize the shed and kind of push that hair out that's in a resting phase in a more again, synchronized fashion. It really depends on timing. Like Andrew, kind of like me, lucked out where I took it. I must have been in a relative anagen phase. I started to notice results, excuse me, within the first 3 months, significant results. I did go through a shed probably about 6 or 7 months in. This is before anyone was talking about it. There was no information about this online. So in my view at the time, I thought the drug stopped working. So I upped my dosage from 5 milligrams a day to 7.5 milligrams a day, which I do not recommend. I'm not a doctor, based out of fear and based on the fact that there was no information or the bald truth didn't exist. So no one was talking about using finasteride for hair loss back then. So there was no information about the dread shed. There's no information about, any of this stuff. So I kind of just freeballed it. So I guess the answer is we don't know. There's no set time. It's not like, okay, you take the drug and within 3 months you're going to see a positive effect. I wish we could say that. That could be the case, but you may go through a shed initially. You may be worse off before you get better. What you need to know is you got to give it at least 12 months minimum.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not having any adverse side effects, then you've experienced success before. So there's no reason, again, I'm not a physician, but there's no reason just to not continue if you're not seeing instantaneous results.
Right. I would say that even if you're not seeing instantaneous results, I'd still maintain my regular usage, just at the very least for peace of mind that you're doing everything you can to prevent additional loss. Because even if you can't get back to where you were a year ago, which is what you said you wanted to do, preventing yourself from getting worse should be the priority, and then getting back to where you were a year ago, the bonus result that you can get.
No, I definitely agree. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm at a point now where, I'm still able to do, some things with it, and a lot of times people can't even tell that, the front of my head is got a lot of hair missing. So I'm lucky that way. I think the one other question I do have is, with any side effects, I guess first specifically with sexual side effects, when do those tend to happen? Like I was reading up on a board. And,
well, hold on. Why were you doing this? You've taken the drug 3 or 4 times already.
I got you loud and clear last time. I don't take them. I take them for what they are. I'm just curious, and like, again, this is a perfect example of one guy said, "Oh, I was on it for 5 years, never experienced any sexual side effects, and then all of a sudden I started getting sexual side effects from the drug." Now, when I read that, I'm like, are you kidding me? This guy is getting it from something else, or he's getting older, or something. But it's probably not 5 years into it. He's starting to see the side effects of that from the Propecia.
Or it could be that 5 years after he started taking it, he started to read about the sexual side effects.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
We can get crucified for speaking your mind about this, but listen, we all know the reality of the situation. Joe, to pimp out another video, just put out a video about Propecia and sexual side effects, and the fact that, look, there's a lot of misinformation online. It's really scary out there.
Yeah.
And this is a drug, and I actually just tweeted about it today to a pharmaceutical company. I know a CEO of a pharmaceutical company was talking about just the tremendous innovations of drug companies. It was because of this innovation that I'm behind this mic today. It is something that changed the trajectory of my life. And I tell my story about my finasteride use and my success on the drug because it's that important to me. It's the reason I do what I do today. So my particular scenario, my particular story is a very positive story. People don't want to hear, especially the guys who are suffering with the adverse side effects, or perhaps attorneys who have agendas who, in their mind believe that, out of all of the, whatever, how many people are using the drug now, Joe?
Millions.
Yeah, millions of guys.
Millions.
The few thousand people that are experiencing these side effects and are willing to go to the mats to file complaints and take legal action. I mean, if you really think about the percentage of guys, it's very, very small. Now, you never had sexual side effects before, so why are you even thinking, when should I expect to see sexual side effects?
I think because I'm 10 years older, so I'm 40 now.
You've been on it for a month. Has it affected you sexually?
Where's my wood? Not that wood. Another wood I can knock on. No.
Okay.
Wow. I didn't like that one.
So what do you think the actual likelihood? I mean, you've been on the drug for a month. You've never suffered sexual side effects from it before. Why do you think you could possibly, just because you're older?
That's
the only reason. That's all. You're just thinking. I'm a little older. Maybe now that I'm lowering my DHT levels, it's going to affect me. Is that the only reason, or is it because of what you're reading?
No. I mean, if I remind you guys from the last time we spoke, it's actually taken this long for me to go back on, probably because what I've read. But you guys really got me through that last time around. But in taking it now, I think maybe just because I'm older and my DHT levels are probably lower, so that got me a little bit concerned.
Okay, well, if your DHT levels are lower because you're older, if that's your concern, then it's probably a good thing, because that would mean that you have more free-flowing testosterone naturally, if that were the case. And again, I'm not a physician. The bottom line is this. I believe, as a layman, as someone who has a lot of experience with this drug, that if you don't experience adverse side effects within the first few weeks of usage, it's unlikely that you're going to experience them later down the line. Now, you will hear guys online saying that they do. You have to realize it's anecdotal. I've been on the drug for well over 20 years now. Joe's been on the drug for a very, very long time as well.
15.
There's no one in my personal life or anyone that has actually taken the advice to get on this drug in a kind of, in my social circle who has had any adverse side effects. I don't know a single person personally. My common law just had a friend whose husband is an actor and a model, and he was apparently upset about his hair. This guy will not take an aspirin, but he got himself on Propecia, no adverse side effects, and he swears after 30 days his hair loss stopped. Now, I'm not saying that it has, but he didn't take the time to read everything that's going on online. This girl asked, common law, what I thought. She knows what I do. I explained my experience, and this guy decided to hop on it, and he has a great experience so far. So, I mean, just all I can tell you is, dude, you've been on it before. It's unlikely anything's going to happen. Talk to your doctor about it if you're concerned, but you just got to give it time, man.
And by the way, that aspirin thing that you mentioned, the guy won't take an aspirin. I talk about this on the video where I'm talking about Propecia. The side effects from it was Excedrin. It was a bottle of Excedrin I was actually reading from. Severe liver damage, stomach bleeding, Rye syndrome, like all kinds of crazy side effects just from over-the-counter pain reliever you can get at any corner gas station.
Yeah.
And so so when we're talking about this stuff, and when I'm talking about in the video, it's like, people are taking these other medications without even thinking twice, without even thinking at all about what possible side effects are. But when we're talking about our junk and the potential for anything even remotely threatening the manhood that we all rely on for our self-esteem, that's that's a taboo. You can't even talk about it without actually causing some sort of issue just from talking about it. And I think that there's a strong component with these people that are reading, and I talk about this, reading about these side effects, going back onto the same places where they read about these side effects, or into other avenues, other media forums or what have you, and repeating these same fears or assumptions and perpetuating the issue as a whole with this repetition. And I think that by you going back into the forums to read about this was dangerous in and of itself, just because you're reading about guys that are having these problems 5 years in, which most likely aren't from the medication. Not a doctor, but logically and from my experience, it's probably not from the medication itself. It's probably from other external factors. But when, again, back to the point, when you're comparing to so many other things that we do in our lives, I think that the side effects overall are fairly benign compared to so many other things that we go through on a daily basis.
And by the way, guys, hold on. 888-659-3727 is a toll-free number. You know, Rye syndrome, you know how many kids have died of Rye syndrome? And, you know, this is what happens. Mother calls a doctor. It's like, kid's got a fever. Give him aspirin. And they don't realize, you know, the kid's getting more ill. Well, you know what? Give him some more aspirin.
Yeah.
It's the aspirin itself that is making the kids sick. Kids die from Rye. I mean, I don't know what the stats are, but at least when I was a kid, it was a big thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, dude, all I could do is wish you the best of luck. I'm glad you called in. I am pretty sure, just based on your history, that you're going to be fine and you will eventually see positive results because you've already been there. You know, you've only been on it for 30 days. I wouldn't be too concerned about the generic versus the Finasteride, the Propecia, because you don't really know yet. But if you're on it for 6 months and don't see anything, then I would say, you know what, maybe jump on the brand name.
Okay.
But that's up to you. I mean, you can jump on the brand name next month. I mean, you have that choice.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of that because why? You know what? If it worked and it cost me, you know, $50 extra a month, but it worked the first time, you know, maybe for peace of mind, $50 a month or $60, whatever the difference is, you know, worth that peace of mind, I think. So maybe I'll give that a whirl.
Dude, I spent $30 on a glass of wine the other night, and first of all, you know, honestly, and it pissed me off that I did it because it wasn't for me. But the point is, I'm like, you realize this glass of wine is $30. We can go outside to the liquor store, buy the entire bottle for, you know, $50, spend a $25 corking fee, and still make out because we're going to get 4 glasses out of that. So,
Spencer, I work in Manhattan, and there's a 9 o'clock. There's a 9 o'clock. What they call it, early bird special. When when I drive into the city, sometimes if you get in like 9:01, your $20 early morning special jumps up to $48, which I did the other day. So,
yeah, sure.
You know.
And that's it. So you know what? You take brand name, you get peace of mind, and then hopefully you'll call us back in a couple of months. Or obviously you're always welcome to call anytime. But you're like, you know what? I'm seeing positive results. And by the way, congratulations on the new kid. I wish you the best of luck with it.
Oh yeah, congratulations.
Thank you guys, and you guys are great. I really, to everybody listening for the first time, you guys are just such an awesome resource to have and a place to really, there's really no one else to really talk to about this kind of stuff. So thanks for doing what you're doing. It's a huge, huge, huge help.
Well, listen, I appreciate you saying that. And listen, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the fact that we have people who are, I mean, it's unfortunate that there's so many of you guys who are in need, but that's what this platform is all about.
Right.
So I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. It used to be every week. We're going to try to be on it every week again. But, just keep spreading the word because there's so many guys just like you, man, who need help.